Hi guys, I'm super excited to be interviewing Renee Spyrou. Renee's actually a good friend of mine. We've actually known each other since 2016, I think it was. And I absolutely love her. She's a phenomenal writer. She writes the Seraphympire series. I can never say it, and you will see my struggle in this interview as she tries to teach me the word. She's created a word that I cannot say. We all have those words. But she writes fantasy, action, and I love her work. I've read book 1 in the series. She's finished book 3, working on book 4 at the moment, and this is actually her first ever interview. I'm super excited. We're going to join each other for a nice little Midori Splice cheeky drink, and we're going to enjoy this interview and catch up. So welcome, and let's go say hi to Renee.
See it? That's how I break it down.
Seraphympire. Seraphympire. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I say that and I still mess it up, which I probably will, that's your cue.
You don't want me to correct you?
No, I do.
Oh, you want me to correct you? Oh, okay.
Maybe it's just one of those words. Like
Seraph? If you like Seraph, because she's half Seraph, and I did the Fimpire after Seraphympire. Think of Seraphympire. She's a seraph, like the angels. You know those seraph?
Seraphympire. It's alright. It's gonna be messy. I can't wait. Well,
Okay.
first of all, cheers on our Sunday afternoon. Happy Easter, everyone. I have a Midori Splice because I'm a classy broad, and Renee has a UDL classic
Passion fruit.
Oh, how refreshing. Mine's got whipped cream and everything. I went all out for this interview. So, Renee, question 1. I'm so excited to break your video cherry. You live in Australia. You and I actually know each other quite well, but you are in Australia. So what is it like to live in Australia?
Hot. I think we're very blessed to live in Australia, to be honest. I've lived in a few different countries, so
Ooh,
yeah.
what countries?
Africa and Greece. Yeah, I lived in Africa for 3 to 4 years in the middle in Zaire, now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo.
How did that happen?
George was born there.
Really?
A lot of Greeks were there when he was born there in Lubumbashi. Yeah, that's where he was born.
I love that I've known you for a couple of years now, and straight from the get-go, the first question I'm like, since when?
Yeah, seen a lot.
And Greece, how long were you in Greece for? Whereabouts?
I've been 4 times to Greece. In 1991, after I finished college, I went and lived there for about a year and a half with family. So that's where I learned how to speak Greek. And I finished learning how to speak Greek when I was in the Congo, in Zaire. In 1994, we were there when the Ebola the second Ebola outbreak happened. We were there when the Rwanda had those wars with the Hutus and the Tutsis, when the Tutsis, the 2.5 million refugees, crossed the border into Zaire. Seen a lot, yeah. We were there when Mobutu's reign fell and the rebels overtook the country. I've seen civil wars. I've been held up at gunpoint. Yeah, I've seen a lot. So I've answered some of your questions. That's one of the questions that you've asked me. I'll be able to go into that more later on. Yeah, that's how I delve into. Yeah.
I love that you're like, this is my first video interview, but already you're like, so that's the teaser, and I'll explain further in another question. Like that.
Well, I'll delve into that further along. Got to keep the viewers intrigued.
Yeah. So I've actually read the first book in your Seraphympire series.
Empire. It's a word I made up, an amalgamation of 2, like vampire and seraph, because my protagonist is half vampire, half seraphim angel.
So you've actually created a word in the world, which is one of the words I can't pronounce. Like, you know.
I have created a lot of words in my books that just, yeah.
You are an
Yeah.
artist in your trade. I've read the first book and I absolutely loved it. So I noted, like, one thing with your books as well, because they're quite big. Can you change it to the side? Because they're quite thick. It's over like 500 pages.
Yeah. This was 97,000 words. Originally, the first draft was 188,000 words, so I did pretty well cutting it down. I had a lot of material to work with.
Question is then, because that was your first book you ever wrote, how long did the first one take you, and how did you find the process from writing to publishing?
So initially the first draft of book one took me about a year, but from beginning to end to like publishing, from point A to B to publication, took me about 5 years. But in amongst that time, I did a lot of tutorials and workshops, writing workshops. I went and learnt how to build a website. I did social media. I did so many different courses on how to perfect. Done it all myself. I've done the covers. I did all the formatting. I did the ebook formatting. I did all of that myself. But I taught myself. So it kind of took a while to sort of learn all this sort of stuff. 7 drafts later, because the first book you want to be perfect, because you want people to come back and read, following books. Like it's a trilogy that sets off the series. So I didn't want to put garbage out there. I didn't want to be crucified, because the first book, people are going to crucify you. It's not good. They're quite happy to pick it to pieces and just say, oh, don't read that.
And I think you're right, because I think a lot of people these days, because of the convenience of self-publishing, kind of only do one draft and then they go with it.
Yeah, I did a lot to it. I sent it to a manuscript appraisal agency. I think it was the 3rd draft. I've had it edited once and proofread once. So technically it's gone through a lot of processes. I didn't edit it myself because, you're so close to something that you don't see the mistakes in it. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I want it to be the best it can be. First book, it'll either make you or break you.
How did you actually find, because obviously your books are so long, not long, but they're larger books than most people would publish. How did you find the process of having to write such a long book? Because I know for myself personally, sometimes when I am writing a longer book, like my average books are 80 to 120k. And so even then, about halfway through, I start to sort of, dip in motivation, or it's like you can never see it. So how did you find writing such a large book, and how did you stay consistent with it?
To be honest, I didn't find it difficult at all, only because it was my escape. At the time, I started writing in 2009. At the time, my son, he was terminally ill. So for me, it was an escape of sorts, an escape from my reality. It was long and tedious because I did so many drafts. I believed in the story. I believed it was unique and different. I found that in itself was something that kept me going, because I just wanted it to be written. I wanted it to be finished. And it was the first time I'd ever sort of set myself a goal of even sitting down and writing. It was my escape.
What did family and friends say what did they think about you writing and publishing a book and becoming an author?
Okay, so I only really got one response, and it was from my husband. He laughed and said, yeah, right. It was quite funny, because I think the reason he said it is because I never finish anything. And he sort of thought, okay, right. And when I finished my book, he apologised and said, congratulations, I never thought you'd finish it. But yeah, ever since then, he's been really, really supportive. I never set out to become an author. It was just something I was dissatisfied with the book that I was reading and thought, I can write better than this. I've been reading since I was a kid. I'm an avid reader. So I just couldn't find a book that captured everything. I like a book it's got every sort of facet, you know. It's got intrigue, it's got mystery, it's got, you know, even archaeological like history and all that sort of stuff, and a little bit of romance. I mean, I like something that's twists and turns and captivates you, you know, that's something that you can dive in and get lost in. And I wasn't reading books like that, and I thought, no, I'm going to write my own.
Where did you find the inspiration for your Seraphympire? Did I get it right?
Got it. Yes, you did. Well done.
Thank you.
I have very vivid dreams, and one such dream, I was on this cliff edge looking out. It was sort of like not even a sunset. It was just sort of between twilight and dusk. You know, at the end of the day, and I had these huge wings on my back, and I just jumped off the cliff and just soared down, and that was where I got the inspiration for Micaela. I have lots of flying dreams, and I've always been fascinated and loved the vampire sort of genre. I mean, my books aren't just vampire, they're sort of every sort of mythological creature. That was my inspiration for Micaela's character.
Just from that is where you got the entire, wow.
Yeah, it evolved. You know what it's like when you're writing a story, just evolves and takes on a life of its own, as do some characters. I like to write by the seat of my pants, you know. There was one instance in book 3 where a character goes down into the sewers. I had no idea why he went down into the sewers. And my daughter asked him, why did you go down to the sewers? And I said, I don't know, it'll come to me. And it did. It's like those light bulb moments that you live for. And so I was at work sewing or something, and I just went, oh, I know why he went down into the sewers. And I just got so excited, I madly wrote it. But yeah, it's like you're on a journey, and you're just as much surprised by how things sort of come about.
I can relate to that because I write in a very similar way as well. So I understand that completely.
I think it's more spontaneous. When everything's planned, it's just regimented, and you can see it when you're reading a book. I don't know if you notice, when you read a book, you know when it's had a lot of planning. Sometimes it's too much planning, and it can just overlaps and overrule the story when you just want to read the story and not have too much clutter.
One of my actual peeves when it comes to reading books, and I only recently realized this was a pet peeve, but I was reading Holly Black's book. So, and I loved her series. So, her Wicked Prince. So, book 1.
Oh, I don't know it.
Well, there was in it. It's good. It's like on fairies and stuff like that, and it's a good.
Oh, okay.
But there was about 3 incidences, and I was struggling with the main character. Again, I love the series. I've read it all.
Yeah.
But there was 3 times where she was like, "Oh, and in this dress, I found this object," and of course that object has great importance. But I'm like, that's a little bit too convenient. Like there was.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm like, that's too convenient.
It's like you can see it coming along, and it's sort of, I know I've read books like that. We sort of, oh, how convenient that object or whatever was right there all along.
No, life isn't that easy. That's not right.
No, it's not. You read my books, it's very difficult. I feel for my characters, I really do. 3rd book, it's, cry, you'll laugh, a lot of things happen, a lot of answers get answered, but a lot of questions are raised. I have to say it's my favourite. They're all good, but book 3 is probably my best work, that I had to really dig deep. It's got characters dying, and it was hard emotionally.
This is the conclusion for the series as well, isn't it? You finished with this series.
No, the trilogy, it's a trilogy that sets off the series. Book I'm writing at the moment is the actual prequel. I've sort of done it like a Star Warsy thing, because if I had written how everything began, it would have given everything away. Book 4 is how it all began. It's Micaela's parents' story, but book 5 will take off from where book 3 left off. Even though it's a trilogy, it still has a future in the series. Like, it's Micaela's story. I do want to go on and do the other characters as I sort of go along, so everybody gets a little bit of time so that people can get a clearer insight to their character and why they are the way they are.
My next question then is, who is, and this is always a hard one for authors, I think, who would you say your ideal reader and market is, and why do you think it's important to know who you're marketing to?
Well, I've set out with my books, I don't have an ideal reader. I want everybody to read it. The only downfall is because there are graphic scenes, there is violence and there is graphic language. There are love scenes in it. I have put in the books 18 plus, but I've had young readers from the age of 13 that have read it, but with their approval of their parent told them, okay, well, this, and this is in it. If you don't have a problem for your child to read it, then have at it. It's not tailored to male or female. Both men and women love my books, which I'm happy for, because I get my best reviews from the guys, anywhere from 15 and up. My mum's read it. She loves it. I've had older readers in their 60s read it and love it. I've had 30-year-olds read it. So I haven't sort of really targeted one specific gender or one specific age group, because I think there's a little bit of everything for every age group that can take something from my books if they like that particular genre.
What I take from your book, because I have read book one, and what I loved about it was it kind of reminded me, and I hope that this comes across as complimentary, but it reminded me a little bit of like old school fantasy, like in the sense that it's any of this, but it was nice, and it's obviously very different to anything else I'd ever written.
Yeah.
The setting wasn't so much as modernized, if that makes sense. It like more so was on the characters. It wasn't based on, and I love there was a scene you had of them going to the nightclub. So it wasn't that it wasn't in the modern world, but you just brought so many elements that weren't like the young adult fantasies that we would read these days. So I can see how younger and an older audience would enjoy it, and also the covers as well as. It is very non-biased. It's not targeting anyone specifically, but somebody who clearly loves a kick-ass woman.
Oh, yeah, action.
Right away. So people know in the covers what they're in for.
Like I said, I haven't targeted. I want everybody to enjoy it.
What is the hardest and the best thing about being an independently published author?
The hardest thing is doing it all yourself and the expense, but the best thing is having complete control. I own my characters. I have the first and last word and say of how I want my book to be. When you go to edit, you can take it on board or not, and there are parts that your editor says to cut out, but I've had like sections in book 3 where she's big chunks of word, and I'm sort of thinking, if I cut all that out, a character that was down the end of the bar is suddenly up in the group of people, and they've just moved there suddenly. You've got to go through and pick and choose. You're able to go through and pick and choose what you want to cut and what you don't want to cut. I think the expense of doing it, I struggle with the marketing side of it. I've done workshops on marketing, but still I struggle with the marketing side. I just want to write, but everything else, I just revel in it. Yeah, I love it.
This is like with a lot of authors, and when we're on this channel, we talk about marketing. So obviously viewers who see it, lightly braze past the term, marketing. It's difficult, but nobody actually knows how much that entails, because it is our own.
Oh, it's a big part of it.
It is, and we have to often teach ourselves, whether it's social media marketing, it's being on there for personal things. Like we're looking at algorithms and how to reach more people.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're looking at targeting, and then you've got different platforms and websites and programs, and there is a lot that is involved, and so often we're limited by our knowledge, by the money that we have at the time, and it's really hard because when every author steps into this, they think that all they have to do is write a book and publish.
No.
It goes beyond that.
If I'd known what I was setting myself up for, how much hard work was involved in writing and putting a book out, publishing a book, I don't know whether I'd do it. I think I probably would have, but I don't think people realise how much work one little book takes. After finishing book one, I had a new respect for all authors. And, you know, some people, they cringe at how much a book costs to buy. I don't worry about what a book costs anymore, whereas before I used to. Now I know how much work goes into a book. And I think, well, $25, $27, money well worth spent because of what a book entails to produce and edit and publish. Just the whole, like, you've got all the cover art and you've got everything that's involved with producing a book. You know, I had to teach myself. I have nothing but praise for YouTube because there are so many well worth tutorials on YouTube. It's a wealth of knowledge. Do my covers without watching tutorials on how to use Photoshop. I would not have been able to format my books, ebooks and paperbacks without watching tutorials, the workshops that I did through the Writer Centre. That was the first thing I did when I finished book one, the first draft. I joined a Writer Centre and I became a part of a mentor program. Kim Faulkner, I think that's how she pronounces it. But she was my mentor. I mean, I paid for it, but she was a wealth of knowledge.
You are a regular at the Brisbane and Gold Coast Supernovas. So for those who don't know, Supernova is a massive like anime, manga, gamers, Comic-Con. Absolutely love it. It's got like thousands upon thousands of people that come in over the weekend. It's a fun time. There's celebrities and people dressed up. It's just really awesome. And Renee here is a regular, so you always have a table and you're always signing and
in the artist alley.
And and you do really well. You're really successful in those, and so I know.
Well, I could be more successful, but I'm happy with the sales that I make and the people that I meet. Yeah.
And you do you get a good return and profit on it. I know for me personally, the Supernovas are one convention that I've stopped going to just because it wasn't giving me the profit that I was hoping for. So it's quite expensive, obviously getting tables for the day, and it's hundreds upon hundreds to organize it. And you are really successful in it. So what do you think that offers when, you know, readers are walking past, and not even readers, when people are walking past and they always gravitate towards your work? And what do you think it is that makes you shine in the rough, my darling?
Well, you've got to be I think my table and the way I set it out, it's really eye-catching. You've got to, like with these banners, I have other banners, and I've got bright red tablecloth, and, you know, it really matters. You've got to draw people to you. You know, the cover art, the books, everything. That's what captures people's attention. So you've really got to make your table and make your product. You want people to want it. You've got to have your spiel for your book. You've got to know your book, and you've got to tell people about your book that captures their imagination, that makes them want to read your book, you know. And it was something that I've always sort of struggled with because I sort of tend to fumble. I get nervous. I do. I mean, now talking to you is one-on-one, but when you've got so many people around you, I've not been a great. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't do those panels. You know how you have author panels? I don't think I could do a panel because I just get too nervous.
I've done a fair bit of guest speaking now, and over the last couple of months and years, I've become better on camera and such, and it's really given me confidence. But when I still get up in front of people, when it's just myself, I still get quite I shake, and my voice And the thing is that I'm more of a conversationalist. So if I can bounce on something, that's absolutely fine. But it is intimidating when you stand up in front of a room full of people and you don't know how to read your crowd. I think that's what I struggle with. Right. You know, some might take your humor well.
Are they going to reject you?
Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't been on a panel of guest speaking for about 2 years now. So I'm intrigued after doing all of this and being more comfortable on these kind of platforms. I am curious as to how I would go now with it. I'd probably still get nervous, but I think at the end of the day too, one thing that sort of pushes me to do is I'm like, these people have asked me to be here. They will take value from something. Yeah. And if they don't, then that's okay, because at least it'll encourage somebody in the room. So you'll find those people afterwards. So I think it's sort of, if you can like spin it a little bit, then it's fine. If not, still scary.
often wonder, okay, what do I even have to offer, you know? And I've been told, like, I've got a friend and she does all that sort of, she's an editor and a marketer and she does workshops. She said, Irina, you've got a wealth of knowledge for somebody just starting out and how to go about doing stuff, but still I have those insecurities of what would they even find me interesting, you know what I mean?
Where you are now opposed to where you were when you first started writing your first book. And I do the same thing. I always doubted how much I actually knew until I would be in front of somebody saying, I want to write a book, how do I publish? I'll be like, you need to do this is how you need to do it. And then
that's right.
Oh, wow,
because you've been through the process.
Yeah. And that's where your knowledge is. You do actually know a lot.
10 years, I would hope.
So you run a courier family business as well. And I know that I've known you for years now, and I know that that is massively successful and it takes a lot of your time and resources as well. So I was curious as to how you handle writing a book during that as well. Do you have a certain routine? Does it come in ups and downs, or?
I don't get a lot of sleep. And we bought the courier run. We've got like a fast way courier run. We bought it in 2017. When we bought it, I was in the process of starting book 3. I wrote at night, and at that time I was working 5 jobs, not just the courier run. I had 3 sewing jobs, plus the courier and my writing. So technically it was 5 jobs. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how I did it. Book 3, I think that's why it's been quite a while since I've written, because I probably burnt myself out. And as I said before, book 3 did take a lot out of me emotionally. The week of publication of book 3, I think I had 9 hours sleep in 3 days. I was working 18 hours. That's just my sewing and courier run. And then I cooked dinner. And then when everybody went to bed about 8:30, I'd sit down and write from 8:30 till about 3 o'clock and get up at 4:30 again to go to work. Some nights I'd only have 2 hours sleep. I burned the candle at both ends, I think. I needed a big break after book 3. It's been a year and a bit since I've written anything. So I've just started writing again. So I needed that break, I think. I don't know whether, and now I'm only down to 3 jobs with my writing. So 1 sewing job and a courier run. But I honestly don't know how I managed it. It's funny when you're doing a lot of things, you're used to doing a lot of things. I think now, looking back, I don't think I could do that again. Not with that many jobs, no.
Really interesting, because now that you say that, I recall us meeting in 2017, I think it was, and I actually remember you now telling me about you having 5 jobs, and it was an interesting time because I was working logistics then as well, and I was only getting about 4 hours sleep. And I remember us talking about our books and we're getting super excited by them. I was like, how do you juggle everything, Glenn? You're like, not well. And I'm like, same. And then after we had that conversation, and I was like, and obviously I find like it's dedication to the max, and I find it a beautiful thing, but it's a stupid thing as well. Like, because you burn yourself out. And that's why when I couldn't imagine, like I only had 1 job, 1 corporate job, and then we're writing as well. I could not imagine juggling 5. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, they weren't like, I have 1 main job that I do 8 hours. My 2 other sewing jobs I do 4 hours. Like I'd sort of split it up. I'd do 8 hours a week for 1 job, and then I'd do 4 to 6 hours for the other job. So it wasn't constant. Like I have worked like 18-hour days, that summer that I was published book 3 in November. So it was coming on to summer. I was working really, really hard. But the good thing, I never wrote on the weekends. I had the weekends off. So I tried to fit everything in the beginning. It was, and they weren't like full-time jobs. So one day I would work 2 days a week for one job, or 3 days a week, and the others I'd work. So I did manage my time. It's just I didn't get a lot of sleep during the week.
Your book has very in-depth characters. Your main character, Micaela, has two souls in her. She has two split personalities from the get-go. And I absolutely love...
No, she's got one split personality, but she hears voices
too. Sorry, yes. Sorry,
that's okay. She does have two souls and a split personality.
Yeah. Sorry.
Difficult to write 4 personalities.
And you, like, straight from the get-go, so there was a scene in the cottage where you introduced both those characters immediately. And so I was...
Yeah.
And obviously it's throughout the book, but it was amazing. And so obviously you need massive character development to pull that off, which you did. And I was just curious, is there a way that you structure, do you have a board with your personalities, or is it just you write as you go and they're in your head?
I don't know. I get a feel for a character. It's like they speak to me. I don't know if you understand, being an author, you probably would. It's like they take on a life of their own. I draw from the experiences. I mean, yeah, I'm just turned 50, but I've seen a lot. I've had a lot of things happen to me, like living in Africa, as we discussed. I've seen people, like in Blood Diamond with the child soldiers. I've seen that. I've been held up at gunpoint. I've lost my son to a rare disease. I draw from all those emotions, all the pain and struggles that I've seen and felt. That's how I draw from that experience, those emotions, and put them into my characters. It's just life in general. I think I've seen the darkest of people. I've been there. Watching your son die is not an easy thing, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But if there was a silver lining to his death, it was being able to draw from those emotions to sort of put it into the characters that I write. I do watch people too. That I don't know if you've ever sat in a food court and watched people. Have you ever sat in a food court and just watched people? I don't think they're even aware that they've got little tics and idiosyncrasies, and it's amazing. I watch people. I get a lot of character traits from just watching how people behave and how they treat one another. Don't have any sort of set plan how I work out my characters. It just comes to me. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's like you get a feel for a person, a character. Micaela, she's 4,000 years old. How would you react? You're 4,000 years old. You wouldn't want to be... You've seen people die. You've lived long enough to know that you don't want to get attached to people for fear of being hurt. You build up walls and you push people away. Whereas her split personality, I've got, Kayla, she's the angel, the seraph side. She's compassionate, she's loving, she sees the beauty in life. Whereas Micaela's the vampire side. She's everything that Kayla is not. She's a warrior, she's abrupt, she's an introvert, she's hateful and angry. So I draw on those emotions that I've felt and I project them into my characters. There are some characters that I have put quirks that I sort of like with Reese. I love sick jokes. I just had to have a character that loves sick jokes. There's some element that, there's a little piece, I guess, there's a little piece of me in every character. I don't know if you write the same way. I don't know, but there are other traits in other people that I like, that I sort of see in strangers even, that, I like that. I like that concept. I'll put that in that character. As far as characters, I don't have a set plan.
So what do you think the hardest thing about writing dark fantasy action is?
I don't find it hard at all. I really don't. I think I'd find writing crime thrillers and serial, Agatha Christie sort of, I wouldn't be able to do that. Fantasy, I have lived and breathed from a child. I'm Greek. I grew up on mythology. It's part of who I am. You know, so I find I tend to write what I read and watch. You know, I love action movies. I love Indiana Jones. I love the Marvel universe. I love Star Wars. I love all those sorts of movies. So I wanted to be able to put something I take from what I see and put them into my books, because I don't know. I write what I want to read. When I looked at that question, I didn't understand it fully. I thought you meant, how do you write an action scene with the swords and all that sort of stuff? And I go and watch like YouTube tutorials, like the Kung Fu and how they, and then I'll walk through it sometimes. Do you ever catch yourself sort of doing poses and how, you know, how would I do that? You know,
I do the same thing when I do like action movies, and you're just like,
how would that look? How would I write that?
Not logistically possible.
No, exactly. So you've got to stand up and do those movements, just and try and sort of interpret that into word and how you would write it.
My favorite question I always ask is, what is your dream? What is the goal for you as an author? What are you chasing?
For my books to go viral so I can write 24/7 and give up all those other jobs. That would be my ultimate dream, for people to read my books and for me to be able to do it as a full-time job. I'd love to be able to just devote every hour of my day to writing and be able to write, I think, with the freedom of, you know, knowing that I've got an income. That would be awesome, to be able to make a living from my books. I think that would be my ideal goal. I think that's every author's ideal goal.
So I like to ask little random questions at the end. So the first one is, what is your favorite TV series to watch?
Oh goodness, I've made a list. There's no one favorite thing. I've got a list and I'm going to refer to it right now, if that's okay. And I know there are some that I have, you know, that I've forgotten. So I've got a list. I really enjoyed Penny Dreadful. Did you ever watch that TV series?
Okay, I enjoyed it until one episode that turned me completely off, and I couldn't watch it anymore after that.
Really? Which season was it?
I think it was 2. It was right before she went to the asylum.
Oh, okay.
So I
stick with it. I love the ending of it. Yeah. Another one I really enjoyed, Stranger Things. The Walking Dead, The Witcher. Travelers is a recent one that I've been watching. I thought that's really good. The Vikings, Supernatural is one that I watched years ago. Vampire Diaries is another one, and True Blood. Most recent, V Wars. The Strain. Have you ever watched The Strain? It's really good. It's a vampire one. It's really, really good. They've done it like a virus that they've caught. I really enjoyed The Strain. And Blood Ties was another one that I watched years ago. And I know there are other ones, but yeah, I love it. Yeah. I mean, I could say the miniseries Salem Lot was what got me started on vampires. Stephen King, but yeah. So yeah, I like too many TV shows.
Who is your favourite author to follow?
I've got so many different authors that Can I refer to my question?
You may. I permit it.
Okay. So Dean Koontz was an author I loved and still love. Stephen King was another one. Both of them influenced my writing genre. I mean, I used to read quite multiple different genres. Like when I was 18, I was reading Ludlum, the Born Identity series. I used to read all those sorts of things, like The Necromancer. Did you ever read the series The Necromancer? I have like quite a list.
If you were a song, what would you be?
Okay. So Paradise by Coldplay. This next song is not widely known. It was in the movie Bright. It's a Netflix movie. It's with Will Smith. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen it, but I know the one you're referring to.
Sit and watch it. It's great. It's a great movie. So it's called Home by Machine Gun Kelly, the ex-ambassadors in Bebesa, and Dark Side. There, it's from Ty Dolla $ign featuring Kiara, Lift, Shannon Knoll, and I Remember by Dead Mouse. So those 5 songs, you know, it depends on what mood I'm in, where I am in my life. You know, those songs I think really sort of nail me, you know, moments in my life, even now. I mean, the words are relevant.
Where is one place in the world that you haven't been to and you would like to go?
Scotland. Scotland and the UK. I've always wanted to go there because there's so much history. That's why I've set my books in London, but Scotland's always been where I've wanted to go. And when you said you're going to Scotland, I'm so jealous. Yeah.
You'll love it. You'll love it.
Just love that the Scottish brogue.
I don't know. It depends how thick the accent is. It seems charming.
I don't care. I just love the Scottish accent. Like, I can do no wrong.
So difficult to work with. Somebody will be like, da-da-da, be like, huh? What?
Yeah, I know. Some of them are so thick you don't know. What was that? And you feel so rude to ask them. You don't understand it. No.
But the funny thing is that they were doing it to me as well.
Oh, really?
A lot of the Europeans struggle with the Australian accent.
Isn't that funny? You don't even have that much of an accent.
No, but, well, apparently we do. I think it's because we're further away, so they're not used to I don't know. Somebody said to me once, when you talk, everything sounds like it ends in a question because you raise your tone. And apparently it's not just me, it's a lot of Australians. And after he said it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's true.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I really have.
So what's your favourite sport to watch or play?
Sport?
Yeah. There's the answer.
Is that considered a sport? I'm not a big sport fan. I did play hockey throughout school.
Okay.
If I were to take up a sport, probably would be hockey, but my hip would be a bit of a hindrance now. I can't run very well anymore. I do like watching like the equestrian, horse dressage and all that sort of stuff, and gymnastics or tennis if it's the final match.
Yeah.
Got to go Federer. I love him.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a big sports fan.
That's all my questions. Do you have anything else you'd like to, you know, do you have anything happening at the moment, or all peachy?
I'm writing my 4th book, which I'm happy about. I sort of finally pulled my finger out and started. It took me a while to sort of get back on the horse. I was starting to go through writer's withdrawal. So I think another reason why I didn't write for so long is because I was in too much pain with my hip, because I've just had a hip replacement. So, pain sort of can be, consuming, and you can't focus. So it's nice to be pain-free again. Got to get back on the horse and start. People ask me, when's book 4 coming out? And I'm sort of thinking, well, I usually put out a book every 2 years, and it's 2020. It's about time I get this book finished, because it's 2 years nearly. So, yeah, I've got to get cracking.
So after we post this now, we're going to make you accountable for it.
I know. Oh.
That's fine. You'll do great. And it was fine to have a rest. But that's all it is.
Oh, no, I really needed it. Quite frankly, I was burnt out. Emotionally, physically, mentally, everything. Yeah, I needed that break just so I could sort of recalibrate and get back to it again. I think I've only got 3 books in me, but I'm sort of thinking, no, I've got too many stories in my head. They're going to drive me nuts if I don't get them down on paper. Yeah. My fans will be happy.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a
it's been so nice to catch up with you.
And I
miss you.
I know, likewise. It's been so
nice.
And I'm so glad that I could pop your first interview, Cherry.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for thinking of me. and giving me this opportunity to talk about my books. And yeah, I've really enjoyed it.